I'm going to kick off by introducing our first panelist, Natasha Stott, who's going to be delivering her paper online. The title is The Performance Projection Paradigm, an exploration of a dialogue between the moving body and projected image through improvisation. Natasha is a research artist facilitator working in intermedial performance, and she develops non-verbal phenomenological languages of embodied communication with dancers and non-dancers. She has a PAR PhD in intermediality, the performance projection paradigm. And Natasha is an associate fellow of the Higher Education Academy. She's a trustee for Touchdown Dance and has been a tutor for the Design for Dialogic Dance program at both the China Academy of Arts in Shanghai and the University of Salford. Her collaborative work with both these institutions was exhibited at Future Lab. Natasha's work was recognised as a model of best practice. Well done you, Natasha, by the Dean of Media and Performance at the University of Salford, and the work was shown at Nanjing University, China. So, Natasha, many thanks. I'm handing over to you. Cheers.
I'm here to present my paper, Beyond Human, the Cyborg Performance and Performance Projection Paradigm, a co-authorship in intermedial, posthuman and transdisciplinary age. So the performance projection paradigm is both posthuman and transhuman, and it's part of a triangulation process between intermediality, posthuman theatre and cyborg performance. And it is a methodology that I create through my research practice during my PAR PhD through 3 iterative waves. The paper introduces the performance projection paradigm, which is a practice-led methodology for intermedial dance and performance that establishes a real-time reciprocal dialogue between moving bodies and the projected image. Situated within a discourse of posthumanism and new materialism and cyborg performance, the performance projection paradigm offers a theoretical and practical framework for exploring co-agency between human and technological actors. Drawing on experimental workshops, the paradigm develops connective techniques, the suggestive spectrum, the shifting shape system, and the choice method that enable performers to interpret and embody projected imagery in an improvisational and emergent way. It is informed by the theories of Donna Haraway and Deleuze and Guattari. The performance projection paradigm foregrounds processes of becoming, deterritorialization, and symbiosis, reframing performance as an ecology of a continuous transformation. The methodology challenges existing unidirectional models of intermedial practice, proposing instead bidirectional feedback system that cultivates new performer agencies. Beyond dance, the performer projection paradigm contributes to discourses of digital humanities, club culture, and VJing, offering a transferable toolkit for embodied interaction in the technological and mediated environment. So the theoretical framework, posthumanism, cyborg, and new materialism. The conceptual foregrounding of the performance projection paradigm emerges from a constellation of theoretical perspectives: posthumanism, new materialism, and cyborganism. Don Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto offers a foundational critique of dualistic thinking, human-machine, nature-culture, male-female, arguing for hybridities that resist essentialism. In this sense, the performer engaging with the projection is not simply augmented by technology, but becomes with it, generating new ontological possibilities. Haraway later expands this in her discussion of symbiosis, or a making with, which insists no system is truly self-sustaining, but always co-constituted through relations. Similarly, Deleuze and Guattari's concept of becoming and deterritorialization emphasizes the fluidity of identity and the generative potential of rupture. Becoming for them is not imitation, but transformation, an opening of a new relational field. In performance, this translates to the processes whereby the body and projection deterritorialize habitual patterns and reconfigure themselves in emergent assemblages. So during the 3 iterative waves of the PAR PhD, I discovered the ideal setup for a new materialist discourse. This was designed with three themes in mind. Number one was an emotional, cognitive, and physical warm-up, which was inclusive of the three connective techniques that I developed that I mentioned previously: the shifting shape system, suggestive spectrum, and choice method. The second was prompts that induce an image interpretation system. And the third was developing a kinesphere around the performing body to extend into the kinesfield between the performer and the visualist in a co-creative practice. The software I used was Module 8, a software operated from the laptop. The central projector was next to the laptop and the two side projectors were on the floor. All three projectors were front projecting. There was a white curtain covering three sides of a four-sided cube. This developed the performance zone, and there was surround sound for immersivity. So during the PhD, I built new knowledge and methodologies. The performance projection paradigm built through prompts, an image interpretation system anew each time between each new performer participant and the visualist in a virtual and physical world. There was a transactional non-verbal dialogue between the body and projection, which currently does not exist. This performance projection paradigm and methodology that I developed challenged existing performance methodologies and proposed a new framework, encouraging connectivity and non-verbal dialogue. The performance play, which took part after the ECP, emotional, cognitive and physical warm-up, was interactive and improvisational and built through feedback loops. These loops were in moment to moment and were developed through kinesthetic play, moving towards a transdisciplinary practice. So the three connective techniques that the performance projection paradigm developed was the suggestive spectrum. This was concerned with colour associations. The shifting shape system, which connected to abstract shapes, and the choice method, which informed decision-making between the performer participant and the visualist during improvisation. The first one of the connective techniques, the suggestive spectrum, can be seen here. This was a visual aid I developed, and it shows becoming colour. The suggestive spectrum operated through a progression of suggestion, followed by visualisation, then manifestation in the body, and actualisation and realisation within the space, with the colours suggested manifesting around them on all three screens. This process allowed colour to move through the body as a lived sensation, shifting between imagination, projection, and embodied response. Here, colour is not symbolic or representational, but an effective force, an intensity that passes through the performer participant. In Deleuzian terms, this is a process of becoming colour. The body is deterritorialized by chromatic intensities, reterritorialized through movement, and then opened again through effective transitions. The performer participant does not use colour, but is moved by it, inhabiting the ongoing exchange between the inside, felt sensation, and the outside, projected image. The second of the connective techniques that I developed was the shifting shape system. Again, here is a visual that I developed to demonstrate this. Different shapes can be seen on the performer participants' bodies, emerging, manifesting, and resonating from particular areas. Each shape could have various spaces depending on the performer participant. For example, in the first image, a triangle is seen in the male participant's elbow or shoulder. In the second image, a triangle is seen in the female participant's knee and hip. The shifting shape system is becoming shape. This technique enables performer participants to imagine and embody abstract shapes, locating them in specific body parts and allowing them to move and emerge. The shape is not stable or predefined. It shifts, migrates, multiplies. This fluidity is aligned with becoming shape, where form is never fixed, but always mutating through motion. The body is not expressing shape, but it is in process with it, creating lines of flight that escape representation. The performer and projection thus enter in a co-creative morphogenesis where boundaries between body and image blur. The third of the connective techniques was choice method. Again, here is a visual to demonstrate this. This moved from suggestion to projection to embodiment reactive interaction. The choice method is becoming decision. The choice method develops from preceding two techniques and foregrounds the moment of decision when multiple stimuli, colours, shapes, projections arrive at once. This is not about rational decision making, but about micro cuts in becoming, where the body is forced to select, shift, or resist. Each choice creates a new trajectory, opening further possibilities. In Deleuze-Guattarian terms, these are branchings of deterritorialization, each decision an act of movement towards difference. Over time, conscious choices fold into unconscious responsiveness. Decision becomes instinct, revealing a state of becoming decision where performer, participant, and projection continually co-constitute each other. The methodology and practices research can be visualized perfectly here in the dynamic model for power developed by Professor Robin Nelson. The guiding questions in my research was, how does this advance the field of intermedial practice and the co-authoring performer agency and the performing cyborg? What prompts dialogic interplay? And what is the most effective communication strategies for the performer, participant, and visualist to realize a non-verbal cyborgian performance? So Robin Nelson's PAR led my work. The connective techniques that I developed also helped, along with adaptable environments and live responsive software module 8, and the performer, participants, and visualist strategies also were developed in a reciprocal feedback. The theoretical frames of Nelson's triangulation model, Haraway's symbiosis, and Deleuze-Guattari's deterritorialization all informed my research. And the key outcomes of this was the toolkit for co-authored intermedial practice, the performance projection paradigm. What developed through the three iterative waves was finding a way to develop a bidirectional feedback loop as opposed to what currently exists predominantly, which is unidirectional. My research investigates a lacuna in intermedial dance, and I argue that existing practices in the field reduce this initiating agency to the performer or technology alone, proposing a unidirectional interaction. In contrast, my methodology facilitates continuous co-creation, a mutual evolution of the body and projection in performance. Drawing on these concepts, I argue that my methodology allows for a dynamic dialogic exchange in a continual feedback loop which points towards a new performer agency, cyborgian performance through bidirectionality. What appeared in my research wasn't initially what I thought was going to be, was what I was going to find. So what I did find wasn't necessarily universal reactions to color or shape, but more ways of processing information. And these processes I called process avenues, which were either a resolution or an activation. The image interpretation system, developed anew each time, was very bespoke to each performer participant. The processes resolved or activated, so on and so forth. Process avenues were either activations, positive or negative, or resolutions. They were either emotionally felt likability avenue, which was usually emotionally charged, a disconnect avenue where performer participants could find no placement, in which case they would move to a body association avenue, which was using the suggestive spectrum, shifting shape system, and choice method, which were methods I'd already introduced them to in the ECP warm-up. Connotations or preference didn't necessarily negate a response, and likewise, just because a colour was disliked didn't necessarily mean it was a block. Usually, a strong dislike ended up being an extreme activator. The cyborg narrative of Deleuze and Guattari, it has never arrived. This is also true of the performance projection paradigm, the ECP warm-up, and the performance play. Haraway speaks of dominations and possibilities. As with any pairing, there are dualisms and moments where one is stronger. There are emerging possibilities of promise with tensions, understanding, and coexistence, and whilst holistic, are at war. Troika Ranch's continuum sphere also relates very similarly to the performance projection paradigm, and moving on from this, a scientific term of autopoiesis and symbiosis is also adopted to describe what happens within the space. Autopoiesis, originally a biological term, means self-creation. Autopoietic, self-generating and maintaining living systems. A continual process of sensing and reconstructing the environment. The dancer is an autonomous system, one that is creative, embodied, and in a continual state of self-creation. In this improvised dialogue, there is an immediate stimuli of one's environment without preconceptions. Haraway, however, argues that nothing is autopoetic, but sympoetic, as it is making with. This embodied reaction can be seen in the performance projection paradigm as the body generates our sense of perception and self within the world. We exist in the world, and the world calls us to interact with our body, bringing implicit possibility into explicit representation through bodily movement. Embodied reaction in both real time and an historical sense through perception contribute to our current perception of the given moment. One of the performer participants in the third and last wave stated, "I had a big connection to the layering of the patterns and textures. I think I felt like I responded a lot to the blue ones. It's my favorite color, but as soon as the blue came up, I was like, yes, I can feel the blue. I think it was a positive activator." This demonstrates Stanway talking about color as a positive activator. This led to the term extreme activator. Blue and red were both extreme activators. The performance projection paradigm, key contributions thus far, explore the future and co-authoring of performance agency. It closes the gap from unidirectional to bidirectional exchange. It is an original methodology with 3 connective techniques and performance play. It is a theoretical innovation of symbiosis, becoming, and deterritorialization, and it is a practice-led toolkit that advances the field. I'm going to play you a short video which shows the performance play and the ECP warm-up in action. And overall, you feel relaxed and in a very safe environment. And any sounds, images, emotions and sensations that you become aware of can be acknowledged and listened to. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Know that you are being looked after personally, emotionally, mentally, physically, and you are in a safe place. Still lying down in the space with your eyes closed. Become aware of yourself, your body, your breath. Let all outside thoughts go. Where are those colours on your body? Where in your feet, fingers, shoulders, chest. So in conclusion, the performance projection paradigm articulates a new approach to intermedial performance in which bodies and technologies exist in reciprocal, co-creative dialogue. Grounded in posthumanism and new materialist thought, the performance projection paradigm reframes performance as a field of becoming, unfinished, emergent, and sympathetic. By combining theory and practice, the performance projection paradigm not only contributes to the artistic innovation, but also advances broader debates around subjectivity, technology, and the future of embodiment. It points towards a performance ecology that is beyond human and deeply attuned to the complexities of human and non-human entanglements. If anyone has any questions, I welcome them.
Thank you, Natasha. That light going to come back on now. I'm just gonna, I think it might got there we go. Hi. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
Have we got a question? Just if not, I'm really curious. I'm going to have to hold this. So the improvisation, just can I clarify? The improvisation is the dancer, is the human responding to, first of all, eyes shut and listening to voice. So responding to your voice, right? And talking about colors and kind of feeling the color moving through. And then we move towards the visuals on the wall with the music. And I suppose I'm interested. There was a lot going on there, not just the graphics. And I think I just want to clarify, what's happening in that space and what's particular, specific about what's happening with that dancer with those technological, the projections. Did that make any sense?
I think so. I'm going to answer it based on what I think you just asked me. So basically, I went into the PhD trying to create a collaborative partner because I moved a lot and I was always in a new city, in a new space. And I don't consider myself a solo artist. So it was about trying to make a collaborative partner, but I wasn't quite sure what that was. I began by working with visualists who were using pre-recorded images, and in that first wave, the performer participants were just responding to the image, so it was unidirectional in that first wave. In the second wave, I realized that even though I had no technological experience, what I needed to do was get software, learn the software, which happened to be Module 8, and I became the visualist. So I went from a performer to a visualist, and I was the sole visualist, and then the image was the same on all three. I used a splitter and the image was the same on all three screens. I was the visualist, I was also the facilitator, and I was the researcher. So I had multiple roles. So you see that there's two screens. One has the script, which I'd written of how to do the warm-up. Then I had the sound on that, and then I had the visuals on a different laptop, and then I had the three projectors. And in the second wave, it was I, the visualist, responding to the performer participants. And in the third and final wave, it was supposed to be bidirectional feedback loops as the performer participants were responding to me and I was responding to them. Obviously, it was a non-verbal conversation. So sometimes they were leading or we were interrupting each other, or I was responding to something they'd just done and they were then responding to me. So it was quite hard to navigate this new language, and each language was different with each performer participant. And I think, as I'd said earlier on, I think I had ideas of what was going to emerge, which would have been very interesting research if that had been the case, but also it created a bit of a crisis moment, which I'm sure everyone has during the PhD, of thinking, where are the things that I thought were going to emerge? And then I realized that I just needed to kind of look at it. And that's when I started to see the process avenues, extreme activators. So yeah, through the three iterative waves, by the third wave, it was a bidirectional feedback loop, if that answers the question.
Okay, great. And just final question, I'm just going to sneak it in, is obviously color and shape were really important. How did you land on those things as being influential, affective?
Yeah, so in the first wave, I'd done a warm-up and it was just purely a physical warm-up. And then I'd realised through the feedback that I was getting from the performer participants who'd maybe never improvised before, or they had improvised but not with projection, was that I needed to connect them to projection or to the image in the warm-up. So by the second wave, I was developing these connected techniques, the shifting shape system and the suggested spectrum. I've got yogic training, so I was using pre-established yogic breathing techniques and the progressive muscle relaxation technique, and I was projecting whilst I was speaking about them. But then I kind of happened upon, when I'd say red, I'd project red, and I'd ask them to imagine it, and then it would project. So it was almost like it was projecting their mind's eye, and then it kind of gave them a feeling of empowerment and co-agency and authorship. And then that, through giving them that platform, I felt like it kind of induced this non-verbal two-way dialogue. So yeah, I think each wave I've done it, and I've done it since the PhD with non-dancers, which was really interesting. I kind of fine-tune it with the projections, so I'll have multiple reds, and depending on what feeling I'm getting from you, I'll give you one of the various reds that moves in different ways and is a different hue. So it can be quite bespoke as well as quite scripted as well, if that makes sense.
Great, great. Thank you. We could take one question, and before we, take a breather, if anybody else wants to ask anything. Otherwise, we'll. Yes.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for your Q&A. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for your paper, Natasha. I just wanted to return to the idea of posthuman theatre, and I just wondered how you understood that. What is posthuman theatre to you, and also how that relates to this performance, in the sense that there seems to be something very human to me in the interaction, and you talk about it as a conversation. You've got a dancer responding to your actions, and you're responding to the dancer's actions. And I wonder how much the technology actually mediates that conversation. Does the dancer, for instance, feel that they're interacting with the image rather than with you?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a bit of a wobbly question, but.
No, I think you kind of answered, well, in one way, your question was some of the way in which I'd answer that. So it's human to human interaction through mediation. So a lot of people, when they've seen my work, are like, oh, you could get like a machine to do this. But the whole point is that it's between two humans, and it's through mediation that we have the conversation. And it's taking the words away and using the body. Even myself as the visualist, I'm using my body to respond. So what I'm feeling off that person based on which projection I give them, and then how I manipulate that projection, even the way the projection moves within the space, so someone can flip it. But I think in terms of what's happening within the space, it is very much the point is that it is two humans having an interaction, and we're using the machine to have that interaction. So in that sense, it's post-human, and it becomes from a